The headquarters of Horizon Global buzzed with anticipation. Hundreds of executives, managers, and employees gathered inside the company's magnificent corporate auditorium. A giant stage stood beneath floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city skyline. Today's event would reveal the company's next executive vice president. Among the senior managers stood Daniel Hayes, a hard-working single dad in his mid-30s. Wearing a perfectly tailored charcoal suit, Daniel had spent 10 years helping Horizon Global grow into one of the country's most successful companies. He never missed deadlines, never sought attention, and balanced every achievement with raising his young daughter, alone after losing his wife years earlier. Most employees believed Daniel had earned the promotion. Then CEO Victoria Brooks walked onto the stage. Elegant in a white designer pantsuit, Victoria was known across the business world as one of the youngest billionaire CEOs in the country. Calm but firm, she carried a black leather portfolio as she announced the company's decision. The board has made its choice. The room became silent. Victoria looked directly at Daniel. I'm sorry, but you're not qualified to lead this company. A wave of whispers swept through the audience. Everyone stared at Daniel. Some executives exchanged satisfied smiles, believing his career had just ended. Daniel remained calm. He slowly walked toward the stage until he stood only a few feet from Victoria. Looking directly into her eyes, he spoke in a steady voice. Then, you won't be CEO anymore. The entire auditorium froze. No one dared breathe. The shareholders, executives, and employees looked between Daniel and Victoria, unable to understand how an ordinary senior manager had just challenged the billionaire CEO in front of the entire company. Victoria's expression changed completely. Instead of anger, she smiled. The smile on Victoria Brooks's face confused everyone in the auditorium. The executives expected security to remove Daniel immediately, but instead, the billionaire CEO calmly stepped closer to him. That's exactly the answer I was hoping to hear, she said. The audience looked at each other in complete disbelief. Victoria turned toward the shareholders seated in the front row and announced, For the past 6 months, the board and I have been conducting a confidential leadership evaluation. We weren't looking for someone who would simply accept authority. We were looking for someone brave, enough to challenge it when the company was making the wrong decision. She then looked back at Daniel. This morning, I intentionally rejected your promotion because I wanted to know whether you would quietly walk away or stand up for what you believed was right. Daniel remained calm and replied, I wasn't protecting my position. I was protecting the employees who trusted me. If leadership rewards politics instead of integrity, then the company loses its future. If that becomes the direction of Horizon Global, then you shouldn't remain CEO. A deep silence filled the hall. Victoria smiled proudly and faced the audience. Exactly. A true leader doesn't chase power. A true leader protects people, even if it means standing against the CEO herself. The shareholders slowly rose to their feet and began applauding. Employees who had doubted Daniel moments earlier watched with admiration. What had seemed like the end of his career was actually the beginning of the biggest moment of his life. Victoria closed the folder in her hand and announced, Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce the next Executive Vice President of Horizon Global, Daniel Hayes. The auditorium erupted into thunderous applause, while Daniel stood speechless, realizing that the greatest test of his life had just become his greatest victory.
The app lalu continue for several minutes before Victoria Brooks raised her hand, asking the audience to settle down. Smiling warmly, she invited Daniel to join her on stage. This is something everything he deserved to know as she began. This promotional is a reward for today's answer. Daniel Yang it. Yeah. Thời gian screen. Behind them lit up with photograph and report showing Daniel Sir remark Ben Juni at Horizon Global. Emlo watched in Amazon Accelerant. Tag Daniel had personally trained dozens of young manager. Veduteo later became department head. Donated his annual bonus to the companies. Emlo Genji Fang without revealing his name and repeating refer. Higher paying offer from Rivan. Company BK Heavily Loyally. Matter more than money. Victoria like that why money is to be focused only on profit. Daniel clearly focused on people. After losing his wife, he had reset his daughter alone why. Still arriving at work before everyone else and leaving only after making sure his team had everything they need. Leadership is about sitting in the biggest office, in Victoria side. It's about earning trust every single day. She Thanh Tung. Tao the board of director. Veduteo unan mu apro the apoi. In front of handle of Emlo. Victoria handed Daniel the official as the vice president contract. Fighting back there, Daniel accepted it with both hands and sight. This promotional is the just mine. It belongs to every Emlo Veduteo believe that honesty, hard work, and kindred still matter. The audience immediately rose for an outstanding ovation. Reliving they had just one said, one of the most inspiring leadership moment in the company's history.
6 months later, Horizon Global had become a completely different company under the leadership of Victoria Brooks and Executive Vice President Daniel Hayes. Employee satisfaction reached record levels, productivity increased, and the company was recognized as one of the best places to work in the country. Daniel never allowed his new title to change who he was. Every morning, he still drove his young daughter, Emma, to school before arriving at the office, reminding her that kindness would always be more valuable than success. One evening, Horizon Global held its annual Leadership Excellence Gala in the same corporate auditorium, where Daniel had once been publicly told he wasn't qualified to lead. This time, the atmosphere was filled with admiration instead of judgment. Standing before thousands of employees, Victoria smiled as she addressed the audience. 6 months ago, I challenged Daniel Hayes in front of this entire company. Many people believed I was rejecting him. In reality, I was proving to everyone that true leaders don't seek authority, they earn it. She then invited Daniel onto the stage as the audience rose in a standing ovation. Looking around the packed auditorium, Daniel took a deep breath before speaking. The greatest lesson I've learned is that leadership isn't about having the highest title. It's about serving people, keeping your promises, and doing the right thing even when no one is watching. He paused before smiling. Everything I've accomplished began with one responsibility, being the best father I could be for my daughter. Tears filled the eyes of many employees as Emma walked onto the stage and hugged her father. The audience applauded, louder than ever, while Victoria proudly watched the touching moment. She turned to the crowd and said, "Today, Daniel Hayes isn't respected because he's an executive. He's respected because he's the kind of leader every company hopes to find and every family is proud to have." As the lights dimmed and the applause echoed throughout the auditorium, Daniel realized that the greatest promotion of his life had never been a job title. It was earning the trust, respect, and gratitude of the people he had spent years quietly serving. The end.